Today, we are cracking open a book that has obsessed scholars, scientists, and mystics for more than 400 years. It's a cryptic illustrated manual that claims to hold the secret to one of humanity's oldest and maybe wildest dreams.
I know, it sounds like something straight out of a fantasy novel, right? But for the alchemists of the Renaissance, this wasn't fantasy. It was the entire goal of their life's work, and one book, The 12 Keys, promised to show them the way.
So the whole book is built around 12 of these, well, just look at them. They're bizarre, but also kind of beautiful emblems. Each one is a key, a single crucial step in a grand process to create the legendary Philosopher's Stone, a substance that could supposedly not only perfect metals, but maybe even perfect life itself.
Okay, so where in the world did this incredible text come from? Well, the story behind it is almost as mysterious as the work itself.
The book claims to be written by a guy named Basil Valentine, a Benedictine monk from the 15th century. But here's the twist. Modern historians are pretty sure he never existed. The name was actually a pseudonym, most likely used by the book's publisher, Johann Thölde, to give his work this air of ancient, secret wisdom. Pretty clever, right?
Now, if you were to crack this thing open expecting a simple, add this to that kind of recipe, you are in for a serious shock. This is not a chemistry textbook. It's a book of riddles.
I mean, what does that even mean?
Passages like this one are deliberately confusing. It sounds like absolute nonsense, but it's actually a really sophisticated form of encryption. It was designed to protect the alchemist's secrets from anyone they considered unworthy or uninitiated. This system of code names, or deck name, was a standard language of alchemy. So every strange animal, every planet, every mythological figure you see was a stand-in for a real chemical, a real substance, or a real laboratory procedure. So the challenge wasn't just to follow the recipe, you had to crack the code first. So, you know what? Let's try to crack this code ourselves. We're going to start right at the beginning, the first key.
All right, take a look at this. At first glance, it just looks like this really weird scene, right? You've got a king, a queen, a wolf, but here's the thing. Every single detail you see here is a piece of a chemical puzzle.
This is where it gets really cool, because we can basically build a decoder ring for this thing. The king, that's a common alchemical symbol for gold. The hungry gray wolf is called the child of Saturn. And since the planet Saturn was associated with lead, that points us to the element antimony, which was often found in lead ore. And that fiery furnace in the background? That represents the crucible, where all the work happens. And what's amazing is that this isn't just a fantasy drawing. It's a step-by-step guide to a real-world chemical process for purifying gold. So you melt raw gold with antimony. The antimony acts like a magnet, pulling all the impurities like copper or silver away from the gold. You skim that gunk off the top, and then you reheat the leftover gold antimony alloy 3 times. See the 3 flowers the queen is holding? And that burns off the antimony, leaving you with incredibly pure gold. And get this, this wasn't just some theory they were scribbling down. Archaeologists have actually dug up 16th century alchemical labs, and they found the exact kinds of specialized crucibles you would need for this exact process. These people were really doing this stuff.
Okay, so the first key is all about purifying your starting material. Got it. Now let's zoom out and see how this one single step fits into the entire epic master plan.
Each key lays out a stage of what alchemists called the great work. It kicks off with purification, which we just saw. Then you get solution, dissolving that pure material. After that, you've got processes like extracting an essential salt, and then conjunction, which they called a chemical wedding of opposites. A really important middle stage is putrefaction, which is a controlled decay and rebirth of the substance. And it all leads up to projection, the final step where you use the finished stone to turn base metals into gold. As you move through the keys, the symbolism just gets wilder and more intense. The third key's fiery dragon, for example, that represents extracting a volatile substance they called sulfur. And the skeleton in the fourth key, that symbolizes creating a stable salt from the ashes of a material that's been burned at super high temperatures. And the stages just get more and more complex. The sixth key, for instance, shows that chemical wedding I mentioned, the joining of opposite forces, like the sun and the moon. And the eighth key illustrates putrefaction. This was a vital step where the material had to literally die and decay, kind of like a seed buried in the ground, before it could be reborn into something new and way more powerful. So this brings us to the biggest question of all. With all this incredibly complex chemistry and mind-bending symbolism, what was the real goal here? Were they just trying to make physical gold? And this is where the debate is still going on today. For some, this is a literal nuts and bolts guide to chrysopoeia, the ancient art of making gold. They believe the gold was a real physical stone. But for many others, the entire process is an allegory for spiritual transformation. In that view, the lead isn't a metal at all. It's the alchemist's own soul, which has to be purified, dissolved, and reborn as spiritual gold.
But maybe the real magic of the 12 keys is that it's not one or the other. It's both at the same time.
There's this incredible line from the ninth key that I think really sums it all up. It suggests that the mystery itself is the point. For the alchemist, the beauty, the art, and the challenge of decoding nature's secrets were just as important as the final result. The journey was the transformation. You see, this work comes from a time when the laboratory and the chapel, science and spirit, weren't split apart like they are today. It saw the transformation of matter and the transformation of the self as two sides of the very same coin. And it leaves us with a pretty big question. In our modern world, what might we rediscover if we saw the universe not just as something to be measured, but as something to be deciphered?